Hi, this is Don. I grabbed a little snack and I'm ready to go again. So, if you look in these other two books, I was just talking about Sonnet 81. It had this line, and tongues to be, your being shall rehearse. Now, the understanding is that rehearse meant repeat in those days. So, it's actually saying, and tongues to be, your being shall repeat. So the name is repeated twice in this sonnet, just to give it a little uh, more emphasis. Now, if you look in the Oxfordian book, Shakespeare by Another Name, there's no mention of Houghton in there anywhere, which is understandable because he's talking about Edward de Vere. He's not talking about Shakespeare. And neither in Ian Wilson's Shakespeare, the Evidence, no mention of Houghton in there either. Or I don't think Thomas Hesketh was in the index either. Let me just double check that. Although Wilson does give a little better treatment of the companies that Shakespeare was supposed to have been in. So I'm looking for Hesketh. When Alexander Houghton died, I think his company or his players went to Hesketh, or else to his son, or his half brother, I guess it was, Thomas, who was the father of William. Well, anyways, Wilson is a little bit more on the Shakespeare side, so he could very well have Hesketh in his index. Yep, there he is. So there's other spellings of Houghton. Sometimes it's with a OG. So I looked up every possibility and I didn't see it in here, but it does have a mention of Leslie Hodson. So maybe I should, before I jump to any conclusions, I probably should read. There's numerous pages with, I guess his full name is John Leslie Hodson. So Wilson might be a little bit more on the ball than I'm giving him credit for. But anyways, now we can fill in some of the details showing that, yes, indeed, Shakespeare is the author of the sonnets and not Edward de Vere. Obviously, these three guys, the Earl of Southampton and the Earl of Oxford and Shakespeare, are kind of working together. You might want to look at it as like in rock music, perhaps like the first super group of poets or something. So through circumstances, well, that's the whole point I'm trying to make here is, uh, we don't tend to think of Shakespeare as being religious writing. It's dramatic poetry or whatever, or maybe philosophy in Hamlet, um, Montaigne's philosophy, or a lot of uh, critics treat Shakespeare as psychology or something. So we don't really see him in graphic terms as a religion writer or something, but actually I think he is, because this Will and Grace is very, I had that up on my screen here. William, this is in the Poole book in chapter 10. He fills in uh, the life details of William Houghton. Houghton was born in Well, he was the second son. The first son, Richard, was born on August 26, 1570. So since Thomas and his wife Anne Kigley had 17 children within like 19 years, it's pretty safe to assume that William was born around 1571 and he died in 1642. So Anne, after Thomas died on November 21st, 1589 in battle, Anne remarried Sir Richard Sherburne of Stonyhurst, his third wife after his second wife Catherine died. This is all in the Poole book. William married Grace Sherburne, half-sister of another Sir Richard Sherburne of Stonyhurst. And he was a member of Parliament several times, so it's kind of a prominent family. Will and Grace had 6 children and lived in Grimsarg, 6 miles northeast of Lea, L-E-A, might be Lay. So, although Shakespeare's father was Catholic, the sonnets were published in 1609, and it fits together with Shakespeare's mother died in September of 1608, so he obviously held back the publication of the sonnets until after his mother was gone, because obviously there's some controversial stuff in there that he didn't want to have his mother have to deal with. But evidently he had discussed it, or gone through it with his wife, and so he wasn't concerned about that aspect of his wife hearing it for the first time. So the thing with the religion is that the Reformation, Shakespeare and his cohorts were creating a national theater for England. And so, but everything in Shakespeare's life seems to be fortunate, to say the least. Whereas if you look, this is where the tragedy comes in, because Edward de Vere's life is far from fortunate. If you look at the here again, the Shakespeare by Another Name book, de Vere really leads a tragic life. But obviously he's willing to share that grief with William, through possibly through the Earl of Southampton, because what the details are that Southampton's mother is the one that commissioned William to write the fair youth sonnets, or they're also called the marriage sonnets. So she would have liked to have seen her son marry de Vere's daughter, eldest daughter, Elizabeth. I think the problem was not so much you could make up. It's always dangerous to go in this direction, but you could say, like, at one point Edward de Vere was the favorite of the Queen, so possibly he had an illegitimate son who would be. I don't want to go there. I don't want to say that was Southampton, whereas some people do say things like that. I think what happened was that Elizabeth was just too young for him, and he passed on that betrothal. Before you got married, you got betrothed, and he just never took that step with Elizabeth. He just wasn't interested. He had his eye on somebody else, and he eventually did get married to somebody else. But his life became pretty troubled also. So what I'm saying here is this idea of grace is part of the Reformation. It's also referred to as predestination. Let's see, what is the phrase? The phrase is well, I put it in my first video description. The election of grace of God's will. So William always had this special guidance or whatever that he felt was a part of his life, whereas in contrast to like someone like de Vere, who's just running into one problem after another. I guess I don't have to go into all the details, but I'll just stop it there. But I just wanted to put a focus on the grace or whatever that William seems to be exemplifying in his work. He just keeps going forward. Just kind of an amazing journey from apprenticeship to I think he arrived in London in 87 or 88, 1587. So there's another book, or several books by another author called Arthur Acheson. He's the one that comes up with the order of the sonnets. Like Shakespeare, in his editing for the publication of the sonnets, kind of mixed them up. So by looking at the plays, the wording in the sonnets, he's able to match those up and put them into periods. So there's originally the theory is that there were 20 sonnets in each sequence. So in this Fair Youth sequence, which is the first one, 2 of the sonnets are missing. So you got 1 through 17, and 19 is also goes along with those 17. So Acheson is saying that the other 2 got lost, but I think what happened was they got moved to the back of the book, sonnets 153 and 154, which are talking about Cupid. I think those were the probably sonnets that William wrote when he was in Lancashire about the youth, because it does mention a boy in those sonnets. All right, well, we're going to stop there again and let that soak before we... That might be the whole deal there. I might have to start on a different subject in the sonnets next. Thanks.